Alright, welcome to another episode of Why Would You Use? And this time we're going to be going over a primary, namely the Soma. The Soma is a weapon that, until fairly recently, was widely considered, and I think correctly, the best weapon in the entire game. That is before, obviously, the Soma Prime was released. But the regular Soma deserves nearly just as much praise as the Soma Prime, because it is a fantastic weapon that, once you can get it at Master Rank 8, is just a great gun that actually doesn't require mods that are all too rare to be very, very good, considering critical mods, especially for your primary weapon, are not very rare aside from Vital Sense. But that's just one rare mod you need to make this weapon work. So the mod requirements are actually really low, especially by the time you're Master Rank 8. Generally, before you get this weapon, you kind of already have all of the mods you need, barring just the one Vital Sense. And many of you will have gotten that anyway. So, the Soma offers an incredibly high rate of fire that ramps up like you would expect a Gatling gun kind of to do. It has that sort of effect with it. It has an incredibly large magazine. It has a 100-round magazine, which is very, very large. It has a really high critical multiplier, and it also has a very respectable regular critical chance. So, modded, these are the stats that I usually come up with, and it is a machine gun, but these numbers are lower than I would say lead on, or they lead you to believe the weapon maybe is not very damaging. But the important thing here is that with the correct mods, you get a critical multiplier of 6.6. Which, when you're getting headshots and crits at the same time, ends up being a heinous amount of damage. I know this is the first episode where the weapon's build becomes a little bit more important. The first one I did, the Lex. The build for the Lex is not very important. It's just add more damage, add whatever you want. That weapon is very basic. This weapon has some more specific things that it needs to really shine as well as it can. So, generally, without any forma, this is the build that I use for the Soma. So one of the other great things about the Soma is that it already comes polarized with two V polarities, which you're going to use essentially no matter what happens. Serration and Split Chamber fit that very, very well. But the really important mods to have on a Soma are Vital Sense, which is 120% extra crit damage, which is really, really strong. And then Point Strike, which gives you just more critical chance, which, as you can imagine, these two mods together ends up making it way, way better. Whenever you have these two in, you get 75% critical chance, and considering you're firing a ton of rounds, that's gonna work out to be just a huge amount of damage. And a pretty consistent damage. Maybe not as consistent as I'd like, but it's pretty damn consistent damage. Consistent enough that it was considered the best weapon in the game at one point. This is just the general build that I use. Obviously, by adding Forma into the weapon, you can make it even better than this. And the Soma, like just regular Soma, not even like Soma Prime or going in, like it's not even a special variant. It's not even like a Prisma Soma, or it's not even a special edition. It's just a regular old gun. This gun can totally go to endgame with pretty, like, absolute, I would say no problem. Like, tier 4 missions with this weapon, that's like whatever. Yeah, of course the Soma can do that. Like, sure. Like, the Soma is a fantastic weapon that I have used a ton. Like, I stopped using it after Soma Prime came out, and it is still, like, in, like, the top 8 weapons that I have ever put, like, any time into. So, that can tell you how much time I did spend with the Soma because it was so unbelievably good at one point. And it still remains a very, very strong gun. And it's worth saying that one of the few things this gun doesn't really have going for it is its status chance. But with the mods that I've put in it, it's almost at 30%. And with this many rounds, you're going to get some, like, procs off that. Oh, one thing that I almost forgot to mention. So, you'll see the accuracy is 28.6, which doesn't really tell you a whole lot other than perfect accuracy is 100. for the first, I'd say 5 shots of the Soma, you're pretty much hitting exactly what you're aiming at regardless. So you can pick, like, just pick your headshots and, like, kind of burst it, as opposed to always going full auto to make the weapon actually have a really good ammo economy. Or for a more rapid fire playstyle, you do what I did and add in a just normal rifle ammo mutation. Pretty much totally solves your problem right there. And this weapon just becomes an all-around great weapon that can just, it does what you want. It shoots a lot of bullets that do a lot of damage, and it has a way higher than normal bonus on shooting dudes in the head whenever it's built correctly, of course. It's just a good weapon that I can't really say enough good things about, honestly. Like, the only downside this weapon has that keeps people from using it is that there is a prime version of this weapon, and that there are many other good options at the top end for people that want something different than a machine gun, I suppose. But this weapon is just great, and by the time you can craft it, you should. Alright, so it was suggested that I show a montage of the weapon, which is not particularly, or not really something that I can really, like, realistically do, just because I'm, like, there are not any, like, super specific highlights. Usually whenever I'm using a weapon, it is always kind of to full effect. So I figured I would do something a little different than a montage, which is kind of a firing range test. So this is the simulacrum, and it allows me to spawn enemies of a large variety, which the ones that I have scanned anyway, which it tends to be the tougher enemies I have scanned. So I figure it would be pertinent to do like a level 50 fire test. So let's do, well, we fight a lot of corrupted, so that this is a Scorpus. Broken. Here we go. Let's do 2 corrupted bombards, 2 corrupted ancients, probably 3 corrupted heavy gunners. They're pretty normal. And then we'll do 4 of these guys. Probably about 5 of these dudes is fine. And then fill the rest out with these lancers. Okay, so this is like on the stronger end of what you might see at level 50, which is slightly above tier 4 enemies in the regular missions. And then a little tiny ways in to tier 4 survivals and such. So that's a pretty good test of what kinds of things that you can fight. So let's simulate. Okay, so one of the other advantages that I didn't really mention about, they have lots of armor. Oh, it's because of the ancients. Is that you can abuse walls. Also, when enemies are at this level, it does become important to get headshots. Eek. Not doing so hot. But you can see the damage of these enemies. I'm attempting not to use powers as much as I possibly can. And I actually have more health than it might appear like I do. Also, it's worth mentioning. Fuck you. That normally you'd be using corrosive projection when enemies at this level, so this may not be fully representative of what you can expect, because enemies would be going down much faster were I using corrosive projection. And you do, of course, still have to pick your battles. There we go, healed up real quick. Always good to have a weapon that can heal you around. Yeah, as you can see, these level 50 enemies don't really stand much of a chance against the Soma. Unless they are the... Oh, Soma. Sorry, used to whipping out my melee weapon. Gonna have to get used to simulating these weapons, because I think I'm gonna continue to do this. And I don't know what was wrong with that butcher. Oh, I don't think they had seen me yet. That should be all of them. Yep. Alright, so there's that group of enemies. A little sloppy in the beginning, and I was attempting not to use powers. But hopefully that can show like the amount of damage that you can dish out with the Soma, because it's pretty significant. Especially against enemies where you have stripped them of armor, considering it's mostly slash damage, and whatever element you put on. If you were to put viral on this weapon instead of corrosive, which is kind of necessary against these armored opponents that I was fighting, because I can't remove their armor in the simulacrum, you would see a huge damage spike even on that, because most of the enemies I just fought were armored. But yeah, hopefully that kind of helps show why the weapon is so good, because it is a very, very strong weapon. So yeah, if you guys like me doing this simulacrum part of this to kind of show like the range at which you can use a weapon, and I'm sure I could have gone just like up to probably like 70, and this weapon would have been fine, were I to mix in my powers a little bit more. But let me know what you think, and I'll kind of tweak it as needed for the best experience and showcase of the weapon.